Hello viewers, this is Marianne from Revealing Light Tarot. The Mueller probe has been on my mind for some time now, particularly around the FBI and the FBI background check on Kavanaugh, which was severely limited, which is what my reading was saying, severely limited by the White House. In that reading, I didn't pick up any collusion between the White House and Christopher Wray, but I did get the impression that they had their hands tied behind their back and therefore it would be thrown back to the senators for a vote. So how does all that impact on the Mueller probe? It's gone very quiet. I think there's a reason for that. Just today we've had an American who has been found guilty of the connections with the Russian troll farms and the interference in the 2016 election. He's been charged and sentenced, but there's that view that he is somewhat a smaller fish. And so it's worrying that there is no connection there between this person and Donald Trump at this stage. And of course, we all know that there are bigger fish who could actually be caught, such as Kushner and Trump Jr., given the Tower meeting. So what does all this mean? The fact that we haven't had any major indictments since Manafort, and then we have this relatively minor player in things that's not connected, or supposedly at this point not connected to Trump. Now, I mean, it could be one of two things. It could be that in this lead up to the midterm elections, the Mueller probe has gone quite deliberately, and that they're waiting until after the midterms to bring through more indictments. It could mean we could have another indictment, tomorrow or next week. We really don't know. So that's why I wanted to do a card reading. I'll do two things. I'll start with how is the Mueller probe going and what do we need to know about it now, today. And then I'll also do a second reading, is the FBI compromised? But my feelings around is the FBI compromised, I still go back to my original reading where, yes, they're being curtailed, but it's not as black and white as there's collusion between the FBI and Donald Trump. I'm not seeing it as black and white as that. I'm seeing them as Donald Trump is doing everything he can to stop the investigations, whether that be Mueller or the investigation into Kavanaugh. There was no investigation into Kavanaugh. Let's make that clear. However, as I've said all along, we're not done with Kavanaugh yet. Watch this space, because there will be further people, I think, coming forward, and there will be further investigation of him. We've also got the American Bar Association who's reviewing their evaluation of him. So it's very much timing with Kavanaugh, I feel. But getting back to Mueller, again, it's timing with Mueller. It's all about the timing. So how is the Mueller probe going? What do we need to know about it now? Let me just see if I can pick up anything here. Mueller. Yeah, okay. There's a lot that we don't know. There's both. I see Mueller as being fairly tired at the moment, and fairly burdened, that he's been carrying that weight for so long now. He is handing off, the investigations. I also see Donald Trump being relentless with this Mueller probe. A few weeks ago, when I did a reading on Rod Rosenstein, I did see him meeting with Trump. This was around the time that he was being threatened with being terminated, and there was, I think I said in that reading that there may have been some trade-offs. I don't know what those trade-offs were, but it could have been along the lines of, we don't want anything coming out before the midterms, and of course there are those Department of Justice protocols that in the lead up to any election, there's sort of like a moratorium of a certain amount of time, and that could be why we're getting the quietness now. But we had some really, and it could be tactical as well, because, you know, there's a war going on. Make no mistake about that. It's not for the faint-hearted. The Republicans are winning through nefarious means, and it isn't. And it does no one any favours to underestimate their corruption, and underestimate that they have only one thing in mind, and that's holding on to power. So with that being said, I can see why Mueller is appearing quite tired, quite burdened. I can also understand why there may have been some meetings where there was some negotiations, not around the actual rule of law, but around protocols and what, you know, and there could have been some taking off pressure in the run up to the midterms. But also, as I said, it could have been tactical, and, you know, okay, and you know, I'm getting that Trump Tower meeting again. That's coming into my mind. Okay, let's just see what the cards are telling us. So, what do we need to know about the Mueller probe? What is going on with the Mueller probe now? Okay, let's see. Okay, so we've got this fear of, in the background of the situation, we've got this fear of long-term security. So the Mueller probe is still threatening the Republicans' moneyed agenda, indeed Donald Trump's moneyed agenda, and at the back of this is fear of change. So it is in the background that Mueller is still threatening their long-term agenda around money, and, you know, this whole making sure the elites are looked after at the expense of the vulnerable. So there is this holding on to their money, and this fear. So that's really at the background of the situation. And we've got some victory happening in the present. Now, I asked, what do we need to know? How is the Mueller probe going, and what do we need to know about it now? There could be some victory of sorts, and that could be for the Mueller probe, okay? So in some way they might be victorious. I know that Roger Stone has a case before the courts at the moment to try and stop that probe in some way, and it could be they're victorious there. But there is victory there for the Mueller probe, but at the same time, in the background, there's a huge moneyed forces coming to bear on it. And the King of Wands. Now, the King of Wands is this bold leader, this top dog, and it's really a card of courage, and that is Mueller himself. So this is kind of in the near future. He is, or has, and will be showing courage, tremendous courage. So he and his team, whether it's obvious or not, are showing tremendous courage. So let's just continue to deepen that reading. The Ace of Swords, so that's mirroring the the Republican agendas around holding on to their moneyed agenda, and fearing the change that they see the Mueller probe could bring. And so what that means to me is Donald Trump is serving them and their base fairly well, and the Mueller probe will threaten that. So that's always going to be in the background. What's driving I guess their efforts to try and shut the probe down is this truth. They don't want the truth to come out. Now, if we go to the victory card, this often presents as Donald Trump. It's the rich merchant. Now, that could tell us that the victory card, there might be at this point in time, victory for Donald Trump. In some way, at present, we're talking about at present. So this goes to this kind of these negotiations that I was seeing around Rod Rosenstein, that there may have been some, protocol enacted at the Department of Justice to not to have any major indictments come forward in the lead up to the midterms, which indeed there are protocols for. So I saw this victory as being for Mueller as well. So things aren't that black and white that it's just a victory for Donald Trump. There's also some victory there for Mueller, and it could very well be tactical. So the King of Wands, again, is this, as I said, it's this courage. And, there is some disappointment or some apathy around the Mueller probe at the moment. Now, it could just be that they're going through this slump. I mean, it's been extremely hard for them. And it could be that they're getting curtailed in some way, and that's disappointing them. But at the end of the day, the King of Wands is sitting on his throne, and the King of Wands is courage, and the King of Wands is Mueller. So the King of Cups against this Republican agenda and the truth coming forward. This, there is a lot of emotions being brought to bear on all the situations. I kind of liken it to a civil war in the USA at the moment. So it's these moneyed elite forces, and then it's their corruption, but it's the truth is hammering at them all the time, and the truth is being driven by the emotions of the people. So what this card is saying is don't be apathetic or disappointed. Keep the fire going, keep the emotion, the outrage, and let that drive you forward. In everything to do with the Mueller probe, with Donald Trump. Will the Republicans be stopped in their tracks? The emotion and the truth are two of the big weapons that are being brought to bear on the Republicans. So, okay, the victory card, deepening that card there. Victory for Donald Trump in the present in some way. Victory for Mueller as well. So watch that. There is some victory for Mueller coming or, happening at the moment. And Donald Trump thinking that he's got his way because he's smug there. But watch for a tactical victory for Mueller coming up fairly quickly, in the present, and this will cause some sort of retreat for Donald Trump. And if it is a tactical victory for Mueller, you might see then things go a little bit quiet then in the as we head toward the midterms. There has been a tactical victory for Mueller. I don't know, it's not clear what that is at the moment, but there has been. Donald Trump thinks he's got a victory as well, and that there is a retreat as a result of those negotiations. There's a retreat on both sides, but it's not impacting on the investigation at all, because in the future we've got this top dog and this courage, which is Mueller. So he's still very much there in the future, but it is hard going for him. It really is hard going for him. Okay, and this is again the Knight of Wands is the fast thinking person, the soldier, and change coming forward. So we've got the courage of Mueller and his team here, and we've seen that courage. You don't need a predictive card to say that Mueller's persistence and courage will win out in relation to his investigation. It will. But make no mistake, there are tremendous forces being brought to bear on it, and there's been disappointment in the past around it for Mueller. So depending on sort of, all of this will come out in history, won't it? The truth will come out, and we'll see exactly what forces were brought to bear on that probe by the White House, knowing that he's already interfered with the Kavanaugh background check. He severely limited it to achieve his agenda. Here we have the Knight of Wands, quick action, and this soldier charging forward. So that tells me that there will be some new indictments coming down. And that there is a lot of courage around that to bring these indictments down. So that is clear in this reading. In the future, there is going to be the King of Wands, this persistence, this courage, holding fast, and also, this courage is not just idealistic. This courage is informed by it's extremely well informed. So it's as much as Donald Trump has his illusionary power, the King of Wands, which I think is representing Mueller, is he's top dog. Okay, he's top dog. It's been hard. It's been very hard, and that's the vision that I get of him being very tired at the moment. But expect things to happen quickly. So from this reading, I think there will be more indictments coming forward. May not be before the midterms, because this is what happened with Kavanaugh. You get to a point in time, and I did that reading on timing yesterday. You get to a point in time where things are going a certain way, and then you get some sort of negotiation, and then you get a retreat. But when you get the retreat, there's always tactical planning and strategizing going on in the background on both sides. So while it has gone quiet, it's going to ramp up again, and it's going to ramp up fairly quickly. I'm not sure whether that will be before the midterms. I can't predict that. But there's more indictments coming, and when it does come, it's going to come really, really quickly. So the smug merchant who thinks he's got a victory now is not, and has caused some sort of retreat in some way. He only thinks he's won. He hasn't won at all. So that's the reading on the Mueller probe. I want to just move now, while we're on the subject, to the FBI. The FBI, has the FBI been compromised? And that, by the way, that was my Rider-Waite deck. And I'll just move to my Aquarian deck now. So let's see. Give it a good old shuffle, and then we'll do some images or visions, whatever you like to call them, the impressions that I'm getting in my mind when I ask the universe for them. And then we'll move forward to the Magician's jumped out. Okay, so there's a lot of tricks being brought to bear at the moment with the FBI. So let's just see. Is the FBI being compromised at the moment? Look, I'm getting initially it's like someone watching a film, and people in a theatre watching, glued to the screen. I don't know why I'm getting that image. It could also be a hearing of some sort. What am I getting there? Yeah, I'm kind of getting that history will show the pressures that have been brought to bear on the FBI. History will be revealed. It's like those old black and white movies that you get, those documentaries, and there will be documentaries made on this period of time in the future. So with that vision in mind, that there's tremendous pressure being brought to bear on the FBI at the moment by the White House, by the Republicans, by the Republican-controlled Congress, by the Republican-controlled Senate, and by the President. Republican President Donald Trump. These are very, very, very dark times. Very, very dark times. I've seen astrologers say that this time very much compares to the Civil War in America. Okay, is the FBI being compromised? FBI being compromised. FBI. Yeah. There's, still channels open between the FBI and the Department of Justice. So I'm seeing lots of meetings between those two. As we know that the Department of Justice oversees the FBI. So, yeah, okay. And they have to be. I know why I got the image of the history, the documentary, and in the theatre, and the old black and white reels projecting onto the screen. Both Rod Rosenstein and Christopher Wray both know that history will judge them. So while these meetings are going on, they're very much aware of how they will be perceived in history. In other words, not just in the pages of history, but when power changes in the United States, what could be the possible consequences for them. So there is still this accountability at the Department of Justice and the FBI level. But as we know, the White House curtailed the Kavanaugh background check and the reason the White House could do that was because it was a background check, okay? So the Senate failed. The Senate called it an FBI investigation. It was never an investigation. It was a background check which could be curtailed by the White House because the White House asked for the background check. So it was the system that failed there, and it was not just the system. No, it wasn't the system. It was the senators that failed there. It was the flakes and the Republicans, and they had control. They've got control of the Senate, and they push their agenda through. Okay. So is the FBI compromised? So I'm saying there's still an accountability there for the FBI. And the Four of Rods is, this card of, it's like homecomings and nostalgia. So I said that there were still lines of accountability there for the FBI and the Department of Justice, as much as there ever has been in the course of history. That's still there. It hasn't been able to be overturned by the White House yet. The King of Pentacles, okay, this is I see this as the materialism of Donald Trump, and that's what's influencing them at the moment. So Donald Trump is a big threat to the FBI and a threat to their accountability. He's a threat to their accountability. Okay, so the way he's doing things are not like how has been done in the past. Presidents may well have, like Nixon, they did put pressure on the they tried to put pressure on the FBI. But Donald Trump's doing this in a different way. He's doing it in a more outrageous way. And it's like there are no rules for Donald Trump, and the FBI have not encountered, while they've encountered this covert pressure, they've not encountered this absolutely no rule, no holds barred approach with Donald Trump. and it's all entirely how he has done business in the past, and the way the corruption that he's had in his business life in the past is being brought in full measure to this presidency. The Queen of Rods is actually a good sign for the future, because this is about resourcefulness. Yeah, it is. It's about resourcefulness and confidence. So it seems to me that the FBI will remain confident of their ability to be accountable to the people. They remain confident of their ability, and remember, I'll couch this by saying they are conscious of what will happen if they're not accountable when there's a change of power. So that's the check and balance there. It's not so... It's got nothing... Well, I guess it has to do with law. It's a deeper meaning to the rule of law. The deeper meaning to the rule of law is accountability. Accountability to any future Senate, accountability to any future Congress, accountability to any future court. Okay, so balancing this in the past, this nostalgia is its balance. Okay, so really the systems that have been built up over time, because we're talking about history here, there's a big strong flavour of history, they've sought to balance the system, and that's going in the FBI's favour. Look at Donald Trump. 7 of Swords, theft, bullying, violence, abuse. Okay, remember I said they've not encountered this before. That's what's being brought to bear on the FBI right now. And they obviously have seen it all, but this open outrageousness, this no rule book is new to them. And the moon, at the presidential level, the Queen of Rods, which is the resources, the resourcefulness, the ideas, the strategy of the FBI, and the confidence of the FBI in that accountability, that deeper meaning for the rule of law, is the moon. And that is, going back to this, what I saw at the beginning of this reading, if they're going to keep secrets, they're past masters at knowing how these secrets can come out. So one way or another, you've got the media on their tail all the time. People do not they don't value the media enough. The FBI, again, this is tied up with history. Okay, so the FBI's learnt from history. So the relationships and this nostalgia. So this could be the relationships that the FBI has had with previous presidents. It could be the relationship the FBI has with the people of America. They're having to be balanced in their relationships between the president versus their relationship with the people. It's an interesting reading. Donald Trump, again, the King of Pentacles, trying to, get away with theft and bullying. He's going to suffer a loss, the Eight of Cups. Okay, so withdrawal, retreat, that's what's on the agenda for Donald Trump when it comes to the FBI, eventually. Okay, the King of Swords coming through with the Sword of Truth in the future with the FBI. Okay, again, this is not based on ideological, reasons. This is based on that deeper rule of law, that they're conscious that if they were compromised in any way, the truth would come out. And this is historical. This is because I got that history aspect to this reading. This is what they've learnt, the kind of decades-long learning and knowledge that's been built up in the FBI. They know that if they were compromised in the future, there's a change of power, the truth would come out, any secret dealings would be revealed, and so they're confident in their accountability. So from this reading, it looks like there's a lot of outrageous, overt rule breaking going on by Donald Trump. He's trying to get away with this with his agenda, his corrupt agenda. But that's not going to be successful in the longer term. There is a history aspect to this reading, and I would throw you back to Nixon days as a guide for this reading. Okay, that's it for Mueller and the FBI. I hope you enjoyed the reading. There's some revelations coming out here. And some deep, I think for me, a deeper way I'm learning from this reading. And history again, history teaches us, doesn't it? Okay, thank you.